Council will come to order. All rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our veterans, servicemen and women, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Clerk will call the roll. Oh, sorry, no slips. Oh, Jesus. Another moment of silence. Councilor Anderson would like to make another moment of silence, sorry.
Yes, thank you. I just got word that one of our former city councilors has just recently passed. Councilor Ed Quinn, who was the city councilor in Ward 5, I want to believe. I'm told that he passed away on Saturday. They haven't made arrangements yet, but I served with Ed. Ed and I were both elected back 100 years ago. He was a great counselor and a great human being, and I just asked for us to honor him with a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Winslow? Here. Councilor Murphy? Here. Councilor Kamel?
Here.
Councilor DiMaria? Here. Councilor Spatafora? Here. Councilor Crowe? Here. Councilor O'Malley? Here. Councilor Anderson? Here. Councilor Condon? Out. Councilor Matheson? Out. President Council Seeker?
Here. Sorry for the little bit of confusion. We don't have the roll call sheet, so it's easier to go in order than to forget somebody.
Yes, we are, I guess.
Under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those of you in attendance, please be informed that MATV is recording this evening's meeting, along with resident John Mayara. So just be aware there is video and audio recording of this meeting. First order of business.
We have guest Gabriella Snyder-Stelmach, Executive Director, and Patty Kelly, Development Director from the Bread of Life, will speak before the council to discuss the rebuilding of their headquarters on Eastern Ave.
Good evening. Councilor Kamel.
Hi. Hello. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I had the pleasure to have lunch with Gabriella and Patty at the recent Rotary Club lunch, where they filled us all in on a lot of the great works and hopes and dreams they have for a great organization that's been part of Malden for many decades, and just sort of part of the fabric of our community, and looking to do even better and greater things. So I asked them to come here tonight and tell us a little bit about what they're doing and tell the community what they're doing. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilor Kamel. Yeah, we had a great meeting with the Rotary and got a lot of good energy. And thank you for the opportunity to update you on our project, which we call Under One Roof. As you said, we've been around. We actually started Bread of Life, started as a potluck in 1980 at a local church right across the street, St. Paul's Parish. And we've grown tremendously till now we're serving 1 million meals a year to about 8,000 individuals. When you count people, every time you see them, it's about 50,000 visits and services that we provide in a year. And 60% of the people that we serve are from Malden. So we've been a program that's grown and used a lot of spaces where we could find them. And our big dream is a real game changer for us. We have acquired 54 Eastern Ave. We bought it in 2014. And we have this project to bring all of our services under one roof. So finally, our own kitchen, a dining hall, which we never had before. I'm going to ask Patty, who's our We stole Patty from Housing Families, and we're so excited. She's dedicated to our capital campaign, actually. So she's going to be Vanna White tonight. And maybe you could show us some of our resolution architects from Randy Johnson, principal, did some nice visuals for us. So we're currently doing our services at 54 Eastern, our food pantry. And if you look at some of what we have envisioned, we're doing a new construction project. So the building we're in will be completely taken down, and we'll build out into the parking lot for our multi-purpose hall. We will also have our food pantry distribution, our storage there, our offices. We envision the multi-purpose hall will be for us in the future to be able to do programming like not only for the meals, but have community meetings, have the English classes, which we currently are teaching, have employment training, financial counseling, and we're even now looking into some potential partnerships for workforce development. And we see, especially with the food industry and food service being such a big growth industry in Eastern Mass, we're hoping to be part of that. Our services are for all different constituents that are low income. So as senior citizens, we have a delivery program to 700 seniors a month of groceries. In our evening meals and pantry, we have families, working people, children coming. About 22% of the people we serve are kids. So this combined project is really going to help us serve people more efficiently and to serve more people because we're going to have more space. And one of the things that happens now is we spend a lot of resources just moving around between sites. And as some of you have know, because I've approached you for help, we've lost our meal site several times. We lost St. Paul's, then we lost the American Legion when it was bought for the co-housing project that you know all about. We just lost the Salvation Army in November when they had a flood. At different times, we've been serving out of our van or truck from a parking lot. Right now, thanks to First Baptist, we're in there, but a lot of the facilities, almost all of them, except the Salvation Army, have really outdated equipment and kitchens. Our current stoves that we're using, we had to have the ovens shut off at the First Baptist. We can't use them because they can't be repaired. That's how old they are. So every day we look at each other and say, between that and I think our oil tank just went. We just had to buy a new oil tank, which we hate doing. But every day we say, gee, we need a new building. So the other part of our project that we're doing, and maybe you've got one of the elevation views there, is, as some of you know, we're partnering with Metro North Housing Corp. To build 14 units that are permanent, rent subsidized studio apartments for formerly homeless and veterans. There's veterans vouchers associated with these as well. This housing is so desperately needed that we've gotten the green light pretty much at every stage. We've been able to apply out of round. So right now, the housing portion of this is about $4.4 million. The North Suburban Home Consortium has committed already $1.2 million. The Federal Home Loan Bank, $1.4 million. And there's an application in right now to DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development, for the last $1.8 million. And we're pressing on to a deadline of, a potential construction date of maybe by the end of this year, by October of 2019, if the housing portion gets funded by the state. So, where does Bread of Life stand with all that? So our goal is $2.9 million. We're doing it completely by philanthropy, philanthropic gifts, foundations, individuals, businesses, houses of worship, municipalities. In fact, the city of Melrose has given us $10,000 from their emergency fund. And we're pressing on to our goal. We've raised 50%. So one of the things that we want to let people in Malden know is we welcome you to help us continue to feed Malden, neighbors in need, and people in surrounding communities. Either if people can help us on their own or through their business or organization, and if you can let us know other people that we should get in front of to talk to. We would love that. You can always get us through our website and email me, or email Patty. Everyone knows Patty. So when I was at the last Chamber of Commerce event, people were coming up to me and saying, "Congratulations on hiring Patty Kelly." So happy. That's a lot of pressure, yeah. Did you, please?
I also would like to invite all of you to come in to see the current facility as it stands now, so you can get a visual of the before, if you will, as we move toward the after, which will be state-of-the-art. So anytime you'd like to come visit us, please do. We welcome you to join us. And as Gabby said, if you know people that we can get in front of, connect us, and we'll make the call and go visit them or have them come visit us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Crowe.
You have to wait in line there, Councilor Kamel.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. So, thank you for actually bringing this. It is a very exciting project, and it's been a labor of love, I know, for first TRICAP and now that Metro North Consortium, and of course Bread of Life, though, really took the lead there. I am so excited that you're 50%, there on one side, and you were going to get there on the other. I remember when you first came to as the ward council, we had a neighborhood meeting to kind of look at the building, the Volpe building.
Yep.
And we took a little walk through it, and something ran above us. I think it was a squirrel, and I was like, okay, I'm out. So, but the, really, I do think, we haven't seen what the building looks like now, and really, it'll really bring, I think, some life to really that corner. It's a busy corner as it is, and you always have a lot of clients, lined up and ready to go. But I do think cleaning up that piece of property in that area really goes a long way. So I'm very excited, and I can't wait to walk through the doors of the finished building. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because, yeah, our architects are taking pains to make sure we're greening. We'll have a much nicer fence, because we're right up against the Northern Strand Trail, which is wonderful, but because that's how most of our patrons come to us, and our volunteers also. But it will be an opportunity to really make a wonderful entrance. That actually will be our main entrance, will be from the trail. And we even are contemplating a little cafe feature where people will be able to dine outside and maybe even have some, espresso drinks and a little, if we in our food service provision. That was certainly something we're keeping in mind, to have a little bakery items and some blender drinks. Steve, for the bicyclists, we'll get the protein, the smoothies in there.
Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. And Gabby, like Councilor Crowe, I was at that meeting when you first proposed it, and I know there's been, I don't want to say some stalls, but it's been a long process of love, and you've been able to at least not only raise the money, but keep your partnerships, which is obviously important. The great work that the Bread of Life does in the community is above and beyond. I mean, I'm lucky enough, I've taken my family down there every year now for Thanksgiving. It's something my family looks forward to. But I think the building just will be, the cherry on the top, as they say, because besides you moving all around, it's going to provide homes for much-needed family. I know that was going to go on the top there. So, I think it's great to have a new building, which is always nice, but to provide homes and then a place for people to work and train, I think is even better. It's always nice to have something new, but if it comes with a much bigger price, I think it's more important for the community than just having a new building. So I look forward to being there in the grand opening, and it's going to be great, and I think it will help that bike path become more active and lively. So good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Kamel.
Once again, thank you very much, and I absolutely should, defer to your ward counselor there. So, yeah, I know Peg will be very supportive, and always has been. So you mentioned your website in your email. I don't know if you gave the website. I know you could just go to Google and Google Bread of Life. But
It's www.breadoflifemalden.org.
all right. And just for the folks at home to be able to have that. And then, so you brought these plans, you did already come in front of the planning board with these, right?
Yes, we recently got an extension through 2020.
Great. And so everything's on.
Yes, yeah,
on course
wonderful.
there. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Those are my questions, and I'm really honored to have you guys here.
Thank you so much for asking us.
Thank you. Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you both, just amazing ladies of leadership in our city. Thank you so much for having the vision to do this, both of you. I think it's fantastic. Just a couple of things. You said 14 units in the mixed-use building, and that is all studios?
Yes.
All studios, and they are they're all affordable.
Yes, the vouchers will be attached to the property, so it's a permanent subsidy, and at least 2 of them are veterans vouchers.
So 2 out of the 14 are for veterans. That's fantastic.
Specifically.
That is absolutely fantastic. It's so needed in our community. The other question that I have, is there a community room that maybe our community can use?
Yes, that's why we're, instead of calling our large room there, I don't know if we have that, the dining hall, it really is a multi-purpose hall, because the dinner, even if we did more meals than one a day, there's still going to be a lot of downtime on that, just like there is here at the senior center.
Right.
And so that's what we're envisioning. We do want to have a stage area for performances, be movable and storable. We want to have ability to do art, have classes, trainings. People have talked about other kinds of, whether it's Tai Chi or things of this nature, so yoga. There's a lot of different ideas. So we call it the multi-use hall.
And it's that purple, it's all
Yes,
that purple?
It's the large, yes.
Oh, my goodness, that's
Yes,
great.
It's a large.
Awesome, that's wonderful.
I'd like to add to that, if I may, too. These rooms, they're all available for naming opportunities as well. So when people are kind and generous with their donations and you want to name a room in honor or in memory of somebody, that's part of the capital campaign that we're working on, too. So consider that as well.
Great. And if someone wanted to donate, they would donate to Bread of Life? The checks would be made payable to that?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, thank you for all you do. Having worked with, Bread of Life here and the Open Door up in Gloucester, food pantries are so important to providing food security in our communities. And, and we know the network. The warming center this year, you folks were critical to providing food to that and that type of thing. So, and I know having, gone to Bread of Life and gone to the storehouses and the other churches, I know those facilities are ones that you've managed to do a lot of great work on, but having a modernized facility that's designed for this specific purpose will be a tremendous thing for Malden and our region. And I know in particular, because we are low and moderate income community, it's an extra challenge here to do the work you do. So really appreciate that and look however we can help. I know I had Senator Lewis's office reach out to you about the food trust. Any progress on that front? Does that look promising in any way or so?
Unfortunately, we did go to the rollout, and it does look like a great program, but when they really narrowed down their guidelines, they're looking much more toward a food retail connection,
So
the business end. So we were obviously disappointed, but we'll see what happens next year.
Well, we'll continue to look forward to working with you on that, and we'll, as I come up with ideas, we'll look forward to looking at more things.
Thank
But
you.
great.
We will
Thank you,
track
great.
them all down. Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
Steve.
great, great.
Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple of things. I'm going to follow up just on something that Councilor Kamel and Councilor Di Maria already brought up, but just to give it a little bit more, I get broadband here. You do have a website. Is there a button to donate on your website? So as opposed to just writing a check, you can go right to the website?
Yes, right from the homepage, it says Under One Roof, and you can click right on it, and there's a donate button, and it will take you right to the capital campaign appeal donation,
And
yes.
you are a nonprofit, so this is, any donation is tax
Tax-
deductible, 100% tax?
To the fullest extent of the law.
To the
shall
fullest
we
extent of the law? But
As
the-
we just found out doing our taxes, things that, yeah.
But yes, I think that's important for people, for people to know
Yes,
that.
we are a 501c3,
Right,
yes.
so perfect. And the other thing I just want to say, obviously, Bread of Life is just an integral part, for food security, et cetera, but it's wonderful to hear that you're expanding past that. Obviously, it's very difficult for anyone to accomplish anything if they're hungry, but once you've, what's your slogan, food?
Food for the body, nurture for the soul.
Nurture for the soul. The fact that you're going into workforce development to really help people get out of poverty once they're, haven't had a sustainable source of food and are able to concentrate and, really start to decide what they're going to do with their life and how they're going to make themselves, independent. I think it's incredible. And the last one thing I want to say is I love in your newsletters. If anyone wants to sign up for their newsletter, I would suggest that they go to that website also, because it's amazing when you read some of the stories in that newsletter about folks who you helped and who now are back at your facility helping the next set of people come through. There just seems like there's such a give back, throughout that whole organization, that it's incredible reading. I love the newsletter when it comes out to be able to see what's going on.
Thank you. Yeah, people are inspiring, and I've found in all my years at Bread of Life that consistent fact is that people don't want to be always on the receiving side. They want to give.
Yeah.
And we are such a huge organization for volunteers, 500 volunteers, so we've got a lot of opportunities for people to get involved.
So,
Most of our pantry staff is people who came in needing food.
so very touching. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me join in saying congratulations to the both of you for what you're doing. I'm so proud to see your advertisements. We see it on television, the van that goes through Malden and with the name of Bread of Life on there. And I can recall when the building that you are in, the Volpe building, for those of you who may not know, it was the construction company for the governor who came from Malden, Governor John Volpe. And you've put that location to great use. We often get organizations that come to us and want to take on some of the challenges of poverty and such. And oftentimes, and too many times, when those organizations come to us, they're proposing structures like yours, but in the wrong locations. You are not in the midst of a neighborhood. You are there along Eastern Avenue, where there are commercial facilities that are there. You're in a great location. You mentioned what will be your front door is backed up to the path and so forth. You're doing it all right, and so congratulations to you. A couple of questions that I would raise. You mentioned $2.9 million. Is that your annual operating?
No, that is the philanthropic goal of the capital campaign. So
Yes,
that
the-
includes acquisition, contingency, developer's fee, it's everything.
That's your building
And
out.
we're halfway there, yes.
And what kind of an annual operating budget do
About
you?
$450,000.
$500,000. And where does most of that come from? Do you get that from federal sources, or is it
No,
all
I'd say
philanthropical?
approximately, including the city of Malden, and emergency food and shelter program that used to be called FEMA, that probably all amounts to probably $50,000. All so we have some contracts, like with Mystic Valley Elder Services. We
Okay.
have fundraisers that amount to something like $70,000, and we do a lot of grant writing, and we get all kinds of individual donations. With this, every year, it's, we just never know. But that's it. There's no fee for service of any kind. So it's a very diverse community support. There's not any single funder that if we lost them, we would be in trouble.
Yes, I've worked in a not-for-profit organization in job training back in 100 years ago. And actually, it was back in the late, so I won't even say 100 years ago. It was back in the 70s, where the issues we thought were around job training and that kind of opportunity and so forth, but housing and nourishment and preparation for jobs and all those things. We did those in the 70s, but those things are still needed today. And so what you're doing and where you're doing it is a proper place. And so, again, congratulations to you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies, for coming. Look forward to the finished product.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we get to the next order of business, there's actually a paper on the docket tonight that isn't a paper, it's actually just a communication from the mayor, so I'm going to read it now during the announcements. It's paper, on the docket, it's paper 105-19, and it is a communication from Mayor Christensen. It says, March 13th, 2019, Tom Brennan, City Clerk, 110 Pleasant Street, Malden, Mass. 02148, regarding mayoral appointments to the Cannabis Licensing and Enforcement Commission. Dear Clerk Brennan, I write to name my 2 appointments to the Cannabis Licensing and Enforcement Commission. Pursuant to Section 6.49 of the Malden City Ordinances as amended, I hereby appoint Ron Hogan, Strategic Planning Analyst, to serve as the city staff member with a financial background. Diana Jong, 12 West Street, Malden, Massachusetts, will serve as my appointment from the community, said term to expire on March 13th, 2022. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you. Sincerely, Gary Christensen, Mayor. No lights, everybody's okay? Okay, next order of business. Perfect, place on file.
Next order of business, approval of minutes. Minutes of the council meeting of March 5th, 2019, and minutes of the council meeting of March 12th, 2019.
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Page 3, paper 8619. That matter was referred to joint planning and ordinance. It was the trash bag ordinance amendment for a period of 90 days. For a period of 90 days is missing on the minutes. I'd like to make a motion to add that to the minutes.
You'll second that, Councilor O'Malley? Oh. Second? Second. On Councilor Matheson. No discussion, sorry. Councilor O'Malley.
Yeah, if I remember correct, I do agree with Councilor Matheson that this does need amending, but I don't agree with the amendment. If I remember correctly, and I believe Councilor Spatafora can also opine on this, we referred this correctly, yes, to a joint ordinance and planning, no, a joint ordinance and finance meeting. I do not believe that the 90 days was included in that, mostly because, if I remember correctly, what you see on here, which is 8619, Councilor Matheson's motion failed for a lack of a second, and Counselor Spatafora made a motion to refer it into ordinance and finance. There was no 90-day language associated with that. So I would move to amend by striking the last sentence from the motion carried by unanimous vote to the motion failed for lack of a second, and to further amend by saying a motion was made by Counselor Spatafora that the ordinance be referred to the Rules and Ordinance Committee and the joint Rules and Ordinance and Finance Committee, and the motion carried by unanimous vote.
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. So my recollection was slightly different, and I think we are splitting hairs in a way that we haven't done before. I did make a motion to refer this to ordinance at the suggestion of other councilors. I withdrew that motion and restated the motion to refer it to joint ordinance and finance. And also, I did state that I wanted it there for 90 days. Councilor Murphy questioned if that would bring it to budget time. I believe that's exactly the time that a paper with financial implications should come back to the council. So that was my intention. It was my motion. Again, I state my amendment, and I'm willing to vote on it now. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to discuss? Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. And I actually do agree with Councilor O'Malley, because I do think as it changed, thinking it was in the finances time, that wasn't in there. But I suggest that we table these minutes and watch the tape, just to make
I
sure that
agree.
whether it was in there or not, because that was not my intention. I thought that it was, that we weren't going with the 90 days, understandably, because there's still a lot in ordinance, there's a lot in finance, and to get everybody to kind of go together, that was not my intention.
I agree.
So, thank you.
Second?
Before we table the, so
Councilor O'Malley.
I will second Counselor Crow's motion to table and to review the tapes. But prior to that, I would like to highlight some of the other changes that I think need to be made in the minutes. As you'll see on the first page, under the roll call.
Excuse me, Council President. We have to vote on the tabling motion. That's a separate matter, Councilor O'Malley?
No, it's just, it's in order for our staff to, when they're reviewing the tape, to know what other things need to be changed in this while it's still on here. It's not related to your paper at all. It's related to really minor stuff. So on this date, the 5th, Councilor DiMaria luckily was able to witness the birth of her grandson, and so she was absent. So that's relevant because you'll see down on paper 87-19, it says that the vote carried by a vote from 10 to 1. Really what it should say is yay 9, which would be everyone present, and then nay would just be Councilor Murphy. That would be 10 to 1. That'd be 9 to 1. Under paper 89-19, board is spelled incorrectly. It's OA, not AO. Under paper 65-19, Councilor DiMaria is shown present. Councilor DiMaria's name should be struck, and the yeas should be 10.
Yeah, I just think I think that's a sponsor, Councilor O'Malley. See, it's a sponsor, Craig Spatafora.
It also shows that she voted yes.
The voting, I'm right. The voting is
Yeah.
right, but her name is under sponsors.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
that's correct.
yeah.
That's correct. And I'm sorry to split hairs, but I've been reading these. 274-18, that's the cannabis one. Councilor Crow's name is spelled incorrectly. It's CROWE. It does say that a motion was amended. That first motion to amend changed it from an order to an ordinance. So every other subsequent where it says this order was amended, it should actually say this ordinance was amended, this ordinance was amended, this ordinance was amended, and so on. That's as far as I got currently. Those are really the only ones that really stuck out. Actually, there's one more. Under paper 80-19, it's the council reappointment of Catherine Fallon. It just says Malden, MA as her address. That is unusual. You'll see under the other appointments, it always says the person's full address. Catherine Fallon's legal address is 33 Valley Road, North Reading, Massachusetts. And aside from
Counselor
that,
O'Malley, that's not usually stated for a city employee. It usually just says Malden, Mass.
so that's, those would be all the things that should be looked at.
Okay.
Thank you.
On Counselor Crow's tabling motion, seconded by Counselor O'Malley. All those in favor? All those opposed? The minutes have been tabled. Next order of business. Did you say them both? Counselor O'Malley, did you have any amendments to the minutes of March 12th? Or are we good? Well, she already read them, but I think Patty read both, but they only discussed. Table them both.
The only other thing I'd say on the 12th is this is the one where we were making a lot of amendments. So I think we do want to just double check that what
Okay.
this says on here is
you have
actually
a-
what we did.
Make a motion to table?
I move to
And
table.
do I have a second? On Counselor O'Malley's motion to table minutes for March 12th, seconded by Counselor Di Maria. All those in favor? All those opposed? The minutes have been tabled. Next order of business.
Appointments. Paper 10319, council reappointment of William Sedamino, 4 Wellington Street, Malden, Mass., as a cemetery trustee for the city of Malden, term to expire March 1st, 2024. And paper 10419, mayoral reappointment of Patrick Hayes, 105 Wilmington Ave, Malden, Mass., to the planning board, said term to commence upon his confirmation by the city council and will expire March 1st, 2024. Paper 106, mayoral reappointment of Andrew Zamagny, 16 Cross Street, Malden, Mass., as a member of the Register of Voters Board, said term to expire March 31st, 2022.
Motion to refer to personnel and appointments.
On Counselor Crow's motion to refer to personnel and appointments, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The appointments are referred. Next order of business.
Petitions, paper 10719, Crown Castle, NG, Establish LLC, Crown Castle, to modify transmission equipment at an existing base station within the public right-of-way, 149 Belmont Street, Malden, Mass., utility pole 5062. Crown Castle, paper 10819, Crown Castle, NG East LLC, Crown Castle, to modify transmission equipment at an existing base station within the public right-of-way located at 10 Mill Street, Malden, Mass., utility pole 1042. Paper 10919, petition Crown Castle, NG East LLC, Crown Castle, to modify transmission equipment at an existing base station with the public right-of-way located at the corner of 4042 Ashland Street and Pelham Street, Malden, Mass., utility pole 1395. Paper 11019, petition Crown Castle, North NG East LLC, Crown Castle, to modify transmission equipment at an existing base station within the public right-of-way located at Bryant Street and Cross Street, Malden, Mass., utility pole 1784.
Sorry, we're just getting clarification on something. Could I have a 2-minute recess, please? Okay, sorry for that. Okay. So I declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of these petitions, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Patty read them all, right before we recessed. Sorry. Does she want to come up? Yep, that would be you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Cornwall. I'm the Government Relations Specialist for Crown Castle in this area. Oh. Again. All right. How's that? Better?
Better, yes.
Awesome. So again, my name's Amanda Cornwall. I'm the Government Relations Specialist for this area. And we have 4 locations where we're looking to replace our currently existing equipment. It consists of a pole-top antenna and a side-mounted shroud with a new antenna and a new shroud. By upgrading our equipment at these locations, we'll be able to co-locate Sprint. So co-location allows us to keep our equipment consolidated by occupying 1 pole with space for 4 carriers instead of 1 pole for every carrier. This ensures that we can accommodate the most amount of wireless carriers with the least amount of redundant equipment. So you're not going to see, an antenna every other pole. We're going to have 1 antenna, 1 shroud, all 4 carriers. In addition, by co-locating, that means there's no new fiber, no new power, no new digging at the node. We can pretty much swap out this equipment in a day, causing minimal disruption to residents. The new updated equipment allows for more airflow and sound dampening within our equipment shroud, so that we'll have noise reduction. And because the radio equipment that's inside the shroud on the side of the pole, they're spaced out, air can move through, reducing the need for the equipment fans to turn on when the equipment gets hot. And then lastly, all of these are eligible facilities requests as defined by the FCC. This is explained in more detail in the letters that accompany my petitions. As an EFR, the level of review that the city is permitted is limited in these petitions, but all of these factors we feel bring value to the city of Malden. It gives better access to mobile high-speed broadband, better coverage in general. It helps unload the macros or the big towers as the demand for data increases. It helps with public safety, so you're thinking emergency alerts or school closures, anyone who gets those via text message. And again, with minimal disruption as well to the residents when we go out and change out this equipment. So at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that any of the councilors have.
Councilor Winslow.
I'm just wondering, we do have the ordinance we've passed in the past year, and I'm just wondering about the applicability of that ordinance and whether the building inspector needs to review this.
These are all going to be referred to committee after this
Okay,
public
all right,
hearing
all right,
for
sure.
review.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I know that they go to the building inspector to do all his approval. I just have a quick question. Given the windy conditions we've had around the East Coast the last couple months,
Yep.
how is the antenna on the top? Do they ever fall off?
No, we haven't had any fall off.
Yeah.
All of the structures
Yeah.
are subject to what we call an OCalc,
Yeah.
which is a structural analysis, and they do wind loading. So
Yeah.
they look at worst-case scenarios with the wind. We do have these down in, downtown Boston gets really windy
Yeah.
there to make sure that these aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, okay. That's all I had. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam President. Mrs. Cornwall, what's the relative size of these, this retrofitting? Is it going to be larger than what is currently on these existing poles?
Yes, so.
How much larger?
So for the antennas, they're currently 48 inches in height. Those are the height is going to remain the same. It's the
Okay, 4 feet.
diameter that's going to be larger for the antenna. They're currently an 8.16 inch diameter. They're going to go up to an 18 inch diameter. And then for the shrouds, they come in 2 different size flavors. So we have a 50 inch shroud and a 70 inch shroud. The reason for the difference is under the National Electric Code, we have to be so far away from either current or future proposed telco lines. We personally prefer the 70-inch shrouds because it kind of future-proofs the pole. By having the larger shroud, we can fit a lot more equipment in there. Unfortunately, in some cases, we can't, but that one is also sleeker. It's a little bit thinner.
So you mentioned that you're going to be able to fit, actually, a 4-to-1 reduction, as I understand it. Instead of having, you can put 4 times as much equipment in, or capacity for 4 times as much as you could in the past. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
That's correct. So I believe right now there are 2 carriers on our current equipment. This
Okay.
will allow us to add Sprint with the potential to add a 4th carrier all on this one pole. So we're not going to be removing any equipment at any other sites that we currently have, but if another carrier comes along, then we'll be able to put them here. And co-location is our model. We want to be able to put as much into one instead of going each pole down the street.
So obviously, we're going to get more detail as we refer this to committee, but it sounds like you're kind of the wholesaler for the different carriers?
Yes, correct. We're a neutral host provider, so we build.
Host provider,
Yeah, we
okay.
provide the infrastructure and then they install their equipment.
And would you give me those sizes again, please, the comparison sizes?
So for the antenna, it's 48-inch high,
48 inches high,
which is
yes.
what's currently there. They're staying the same in height.
Okay.
It's the diameter that's getting bigger. So the diameter is 18 inches,
Where it was,
8.
okay, so you've more than doubled, okay.
Yep, and then for the.
Round antenna?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the equipment shrouds are, they're either 70 inches by 20 inches or 50 by 30. And previously, they are 48 inch, or what they currently are is 48 by 14. So one of them's only getting 2 inches taller.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for coming. I see some of the neighbors, so I'm sure they'll have something to say. Because just looking at the pictures, they do look quite a bit bigger, and like even the 18 inches, as Councilor Spatafora asked about some wind thing, the poles I think are only 13 or 14, so they're gonna be even larger than the pole itself. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what the diameter currently is of the pole. If you look at the drawings that were provided, it should give you a good photo simulation of
Right.
what they'll look like.
Yes, I'm looking at actually the one at 35 Ashland Street. That seems pretty big.
Oh, that just happened to be the one I pulled up, so perfect. So it looks like the diameter of the top of the pole is 14.6.
Right.
So the diameter is about 4 inches larger than the top of the pole.
Okay, and, you know, just even from the pictures and from going from 48 to 70, I mean, in this one, the shroud of the box there looks quite large. I'm not really sure how it fits into the aesthetics with, the, you know, the neighborhood. We're really spent an awful long time on small cell towers to really make sure that they sort of fit in with even color and size and height and all of those things, just to make sure that they aren't really very obtrusive and when you look at this, it kind of looks like that. So I'm not sure when these get referred to committee, if we really overlay what we've done with small cell towers. And I'm not sure if these could come down in size at all, if it really does not fit into sort of what we have the small cell towers, because these look very similar.
Yep.
So-
I understand what I said before. We tend to, that's what I'm looking for, prefer the 70-inch because it allows for more airflow by spacing out the equipment, and then allows us to put more equipment in there. So if we change the size to a smaller size, we won't necessarily be able to fit all the equipment in there that we need to fit in there. And then again, it might cause the fans to need to kick on. So we're really looking for that sound dampening too, and that airflow
Right.
for the equipment.
Totally understand that, and like I just said, just kind of overlay what, there was a lot of work done on that ordinance, just to make sure that it is, you know, like I said, there's neighbors in the audience and right actually to this pole in particular. And so not sure how they're going to feel in the residential areas with some of these other, these big
Understood.
things. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. You haven't been here before to hear my skyline litter comments, but that's kind of what I consider most of this. But having said that, once again, I'm a little confused about who Crown Castle is and how, I know Councilor Anderson just said you're like a wholesaler, et cetera. So could you maybe explain to myself, I don't know if anyone else needs an explanation, the role of Crown Castle as it relates to Verizon and National Grid and Comcast, who own many of these poles?
So we are a telecommunications provider. Crown has been around since 1994, and so what we do is we build and maintain an infrastructure behind the world's most revolutionary technologies. Crown Castle's comprehensive portfolio of towers, small cell, and fiber gives people and communities access to essential data, technology, and wireless service, and opens the door to countless opportunities and possibilities. Crown Castle has an extensive footprint in the United States, consisting of 60,000 miles of fiber, 40,000 towers and macro sites, and 50,000 small cell nodes on air or under contract. These original nodes were done by our predecessor, NextG. So we acquired NextG.
Okay, so basically you, one of the things I like, the idea, you know, we've been talking a lot about co-housing in a different aspect about people. I like the idea that you actually can co-house, you know, companies together, so that, you know, we won't have as much skyline litter on the poles as we could if everybody had to go to a separate pole. So it's one positive for what you're doing. But so you rent the pole from Verizon or National Grid or whoever owns the pole?
That's correct. We have a pole attachment agreement
Okay.
with the different utility companies, and they allow us to mount our equipment to the poles.
Okay, and then you sell space to a cellular service such as Sprint or
Yep,
Metro
that's
PCS
correct.
or something like that? Okay, so would Verizon or any of the big carriers ever come to you to do that, or are they still looking to have their own separate poles?
So I believe who's on there now is Verizon. At these locations, I think it's Verizon, and then Sprint came to us to add them here. There are some instances where the carriers will we call it self-performing, where they'll look to occupy a pole by themselves, but Crown Castle's model is co-location. It's least disruption to residents. We don't have to do a lot of new digging or new power, especially like in these instances where it's, you know, same day, pop it off, put the new stuff on.
And, you know, we have in past conversations had discussions about emissions that could be harmful to the general public from these types of, this type of equipment. My question, does that go up? Does that emission go up with multiple co-housed companies?
So the emissions levels change, but they are still well within the permissible levels of the FCC. So There are no health or safety concerns with the equipment. All the carriers have to be licensed by the FCC and comply with all the FCC guidelines, which all this equipment will. And I also believe with my package, there was a report done to show the emissions studies. And then in addition to that, at ground level, the cellular RF levels are not significantly different from a TV or radio signals.
We just, I don't know, we just got these tonight, so I'm sure this will be moved to committee, and we'll have some rousing discussions with you on it as we move forward. So thank you very much for answering my questions.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Hello. I have a few questions.
Sure.
Actually, more than a few. I got 9. Can you define transmission equipment?
Yes, I can. And I believe too, I'll be able to point it out to where it is in my. So if you have a copy of my cover letter,
I have multiple letters. There's one, both of them are from the 19th. One looks like this, and the other looks like that.
so the one with the staple,
Got it.
the 2-page one. The FCC's definition of transmission equipment is footnote 1. It's defined as any equipment that facilitates transmission for any commission license or authorized wireless communication service, including but not limited to radio transceivers, antennas, and other relevant equipment associated with and necessary to their operations, including coax or fiber optic cables and regular or backup power supply. And the definition includes equipment used in any technological configuration associated with any commission-authorized wireless transmission, licensed or unlicensed, commercial, mobile, private mobile broadcast, public safety services, as well as fixed wireless services such as microwaves, backhaul, or fixed broadband.
Thank you. Is what you're showing before us tonight a small cell antenna?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I didn't see that wording anywhere in your proposal, because we have a small cell antenna ordinance. So that's why I was, wait a minute, what's going on? All right, so that's good to know. And when were these existing small cell antennas installed?
They were originally approved back in 2008, again by NextG was our predecessor company. I believe there are 10 currently, and these are 4 of which we are looking to upgrade, where Sprint has identified gaps in coverage.
So now, back in 2008, did you get the approval from the city of Malden to install these?
I would believe so. That predates me, but our company would not have installed anything without whatever approvals were required at that time. I'm not sure if it was if it was a city council, if it was a DPW, if it was a building permit, but we would never install something if we didn't have the permission to do so.
Would you be able to get those approvals for each of the proposals that you have here?
I can do my best to find them.
Right, I mean, wouldn't that be, like, we should also ask our building department or whatever department would be in charge of this, but I think the first step we need to understand is how did these originally get put on the poles? Because to me, when I heard about small cell antennas back in 2017, 12, 16, they seemed like a new technology to me, and I wasn't aware that we had any in the city already. And when we were talking to all of the Verizon and the different companies that were coming in, we had asked for existing equipment, and I don't think that these ones were included in any of the lists. And it would seem to be the reason being is because these are technically formerly owned by NG East, or
NextG, yes.
NextG.
That's correct.
Networks?
So in that instance, it might have been where Verizon had self-performed and done their own installations separate from working with us.
And what year did you acquire NextGen?
I want to say it was
NextG?
shortly after that, probably around 2008, 2009.
All right, so you acquired them in 2008, 2009. Sorry, guys, I didn't expect to have all these questions. Perfect. Do you have a map of, I mean, maybe you have it in this application.
Yes,
Are these all your existing sites
in Malden, yes.
in Malden? Thank you. And for these, you're saying that the poles are owned by primarily Verizon or National Grid?
They're either joint-owned poles by Verizon and National Grid.
Okay. And then, are you familiar with our small cell antenna ordinance?
Yes.
And do the applications that you submitted comply to the best of your knowledge?
So we might have a slightly different opinion. So these are eligible facilities requests as defined by the FCC, and it limits what cities and towns are allowed to request. So I have provided everything that complies with the FCC's Section 6409 eligible facilities request.
Okay, hold on one second, let me write that down. Now I see. So eligible facilities request, is this because it is an existing equipment, or if you decide to put more on other poles, are you going to argue that it is also a eligible facilities request?
For these specific locations, they are eligible facilities requests because they're, as you stated, existing.
Okay, but you're replacing them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But if you take a look at the letter, it defines what an eligible facilities request is and
Is
what
that the stapled
satisfies
one
it.
again?
Yes.
Where does it define eligible facilities requests?
Third paragraph, and then the criteria, the 6 criteria the FCC has established are the second page. The first half tells you what the criteria is, and the second paragraph explains why it meets that criteria.
Do you mind going over that, just so that we all kind of hear it?
Yep.
Thank you.
So in order to satisfy an eligible facilities request, they must meet 6 criteria. We cannot increase the height of the existing base station, which would be the utility pole, by 10% or 10 feet. Because these antennas are remaining the same height, it satisfies the first prong. Does not protrude from the edge of the base station by greater than 6 feet. The equipment shrouds do not protrude from the utility poles by more than 6 feet.
Horizontally?
Correct. I'm sorry, no, so here's the pole, comes out this way horizontally.
Yeah.
We can go out to 6 feet.
Okay.
There's no excavation or more than the standard number of equipment cabinets. Generally, the standard number is 4. And we're not defeating any stealthing nature.
So if it looked like a tree? Is that what
These
you mean?
ones won't look like a tree.
But that's what stealthing means?
Yes, so if there was a requirement that these look like a tree in the original approval, then we would have to stay within the original stealthing, but there were none for these ones.
And so that's the original approval that you'll be getting us?
Correct.
Thank you.
And then the last one is as long as we comply with any prior conditions of approval, as long as it doesn't have to do with the prior 5.
Okay. Radiation, sometimes they come to us with radiation maps. You don't have to provide those because it's existing?
I did provide a emissions report.
Can you,
And everything is done, all the calculations are done conservatively, but the FCC has also stated that health reasons.
could you direct us to the admissions report? Which paper would that be?
Yes, it is a big packet with I believe it's got a tower on the front.
I found it. Pinnacle Telecom Group. Right? This one?
Yes, that is the one. And then the FCC has also stated that health concerns cannot be a reason for or a basis for rejection.
Good to know they're on our side. And then, okay. If for some reason this is not, we have questions about this, that maybe your application is not complete, what date would we have to respond to you by?
We would need
Written?
something in writing within 30 days from the date of my application.
Would that be this Thursday, the 21st?
I believe so. Let's see,
Okay.
it's February 19th.
It would,
And
February has
it would
28
have to
days.
cite to specific sections of the ordinance in which we did not comply with the FCC's requirements.
Understood. And then are any of them on double poles?
They should not be. We do not install on double poles. However, if something were to arise with Verizon, Comcast, National Grid, whoever has the pole, we work with them to move our equipment onto the new pole.
Understood. And then if it was a double pole and it required excavation, would that then trigger, that would be one of these 5, right?
No, because we're not excavating to add any power or anything to the node. If it was something that the utility company needed to do, that's something different entirely.
But if you needed that to be done, wouldn't the utility company be doing the excavation anyway, because it's their pole?
Correct. I think we're talking about something different. So as far as the eligible facilities request goes and needing to excavate, it would be excavating for the installation of our equipment. So if the utility company needed to pull the pole and they needed to excavate, that's separate. That's with the utility, not for our equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of these petitions, please come forward. Hearing none and seeing none, I declare that portion of the hearing closed. Thank you for coming, Ms. Cornwall. Yep. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of these petitions, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Hearing none and seeing none, I declare that portion of the hearing closed. Councilor O'Malley, would you like to make a motion to refer these to public property?
I move to refer to public properties.
Councilor O'Malley's motion to refer these petitions to public property. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The petitions are referred. Next order of business.
Paper 11119, petition Class 2, Loca Enterprises, Inc., DBA L&L Sales and Service, 711 Bow Street, Malden, 15 cars renewal.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer this petition to license. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The petition is referred. Next order of business.
Paper 11219, order that the Personnel and Appointments Committee develop a posting to advertise the position of city clerk.
I just want to give a little background for this paper, if you will. This item's on the agenda because Clerk Brennan notified me earlier this week of his interest in retiring at the end of this year. Given the time it takes to fill these important positions, I thought we should get ahead of the start and do the posting process. I would also like to ask the council to authorize me to work with Clerk Brennan on an agreement on his timing of his retirement and other relevant details that will ensure a smooth and orderly transition. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to ask the council to suspend docket rules so we can take this vote, so we can vote on giving you the permission to start that process. Thank you.
Okay. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to suspend docket rules, all those in favor? All those opposed? Suspension of docket rules. On Councilor Spatafora's motion. Motion for the paper? Aye. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The paper has been passed. Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President. Now, I just want to congratulate our Clerk Brennan on making the decision to retire. It's a very tough decision. I've done it once. I'll probably be doing it a second time in the future. But, you know, to move into the back nine of your life is not something easy. So I commend him for making that very tough decision. I think he has served us well, and I wish him the best of luck, as all of us do on the council. I think he's, done the best that he could here, and I'm sure you all join me in wishing him the best of luck in his back nine. Thank you. Oh, and I do make a motion to allow our council president to move forward with the discussion with Clerk Brennan as she negotiates the placement and the time and the posting. I think that she is certainly will serve us well on the council, and that is a perfect role for her. So I do make the motion. Is there a second for that?
We just
We
approved the paper for the posting of the position.
That's going to personnel appointments.
No, we just approved it. We suspended docket rules to start getting the posting out immediately. We have one from a few years ago when we hired Clerk Brennan, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to change the dates and tweak it a little and repost. So this vote will be for authorizing me to work out the details of his retirement with Clerk Brennan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. On Councilor DiMaria's motion to authorize the council president to work out the details of Clerk Brennan's retirement, seconded by Councilor Kamel. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business.
Paper 11319, ordered that the City Council solicit candidates for appointment to the newly formed Cannabis Licensing Enforcement Committee by posting notice on the city's website, MATV, and other available local media.
On Councilor Crow's, you want to talk? Councilor Crowe.
Please. Thank you. Actually, so as we heard that the mayor has his appointments in place, and I'm not sure if we have to suspend docket rules again, but instead of sending this to personnel and appointments, I think, we're losing time by the time this kind of goes through. So I would suggest that we suspend docket rules and sort of make a decision on how we're going to just get this out. I think that my thought was that it was just a letter of interest on serving on the Cannabis Licensing and Enforcement Committee with a resume, and then we can take those and take it from there. But I think if we send in what we have to, if we to personnel and appointments, and then have to bring it back out that we're going to send out that posting, we're a couple more weeks behind, and the committee's already working, so I think we should get our appointee on there as soon as possible, but open to discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
I would just like to say, I don't think we need to suspend docket rules. I think we would just move to adopt this paper. I mean, I actually don't know the difference between ordered versus order.
Okay.
So I would just second Councilor Crow's motion to approve.
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. So this breaks with convention to a certain degree. In the past, every time the council appoints someone to a committee or a commission, it goes to personnel appointments. We create what the advertisement's going to look like. Then we interview the applicants. We pick the best of those people, refer them up to council, and they get approved from there. I don't understand what the reference is to being behind. I don't think we're behind anything. And I don't know what that posting would look like. Councilor Crowe, do you have a suggestion as to what the posting should look like? Through the chair, I'm asking how that would go. But I would move that this goes to personnel and appointments. I think that's the conventional and the proper way to do it.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe, do you want to answer Councilor Matheson?
I would actually, in later on, hopefully when we ordain, it says in the ordinance exactly what the qualifications are for the appointee. I think we would take that and put that out as the opening, and then again, ask for a letter of interest with your qualifications, as well as a resume, and I think then, take it from there. Well, it still can go into appointments and personnel, but so what's going to come out is the posting that we adopt that's in the ordinance as now. So unless we're doing an application process, whatever else we ask of them, I think that we make that decision right now and then put that in the posting that where the city council is soliciting candidates to be appointed. These are the qualifications we're looking for. Please submit a letter of interest and a resume.
Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, thank you. That was just a query. I still had to respond there. That sounds fine. If we have the criteria and you want to put them on with that availability on the website. But from what I understand from you, those interested applicants would then come back to personnel appointments?
Right.
And if that's the case, let's make that part of the motion. I'll support it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Councilor Kamel.
Yeah, just so I understand this as well, does this, I don't know if it explicitly does, but I'll use the word, does this explicitly authorize you to make minor changes in crafting that ad? And if not, I was going to motion for an amendment that we authorize Councilor Crowe to be able to make those minor adjustments so she doesn't have to go back and forth. That was my thinking.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I mean, I had one very minor amendment that we should just add the word "and" between licensing and enforcement, so we just have consistency what we're doing here. But I mean, should we just make it clear that we're authorizing the chair of personal appointments to make this solicitation, and just, I mean, rather than all 11 of us doing it, maybe we should just make that say that the chair of the Personal Appointments Committee solicit. That would be another amendment, so those two amendments, just to make it clear.
Okay, thank you. On Councilor Winslow's motion to amend the paper to add an "and" in between licensing and enforcement, seconded by Councilor O'Malley. All those in favor? All those opposed? The paper has been amended. Yeah, sorry. Okay, and that the chair of a personnel and appointments solicit candidates for appointment to the newly formed Cannabis Licensing Committee, seconded by Councilor O'Malley. All those in favor? All those opposed? The paper has been amended. Okay, next order, now we have to vote on it. Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, no, just to be clear, I'd like to amend the motion to add that the Personnel and Appointments Committee will review the applicants after they are received.
On Councilor Matheson's motion to amend the paper to add that they will be referred to Personnel and Appointments, seconded by Councilor Winslow. All those in favor? All those opposed? The paper has been amended. On the paper as amended, on Councilor Crow's motion to approve the paper as amended, all those in favor? All those opposed? The paper has been approved as amended. Next order of business.
Paper 11419, order that the City of Malden issue a refund with respect to all street sweeping fines issued during calendar years 2017 and 2018.
Councilor Kamel.
Oh, it's Councilor Matheson for the paper.
Okay.
Really? Sorry.
Councilor Matheson for the paper.
Thank you, Chair. I was inspired last week during personal privilege when you had told me that the snow emergency that got canceled had prompted Mr. Hogan and the mayor to agree to refund
the tickets that were issued during that snow emergency. And this is an issue that's been around for a couple of years. The council had been asking that street sweeping signage be put up so that drivers had fair notice about when and where they can park and when and where they would be subject to ticketing. So over that 2-year period, I was working with the controller to figure out how many tickets were issued. Apparently, there were some odd 19,422 street sweeping citations that were issued since the fine was doubled. And that comes to a total of about $971,000. I've just heard a few individual stories anecdotally about how this ticketing was applied unfairly to them, and I'm sympathetic to their cause, and I'd like to refer it to finance for debate and discussion. A couple of the instances were folks who were just dropping off a child, for example, at the daycare on Ivy Road, left the car for maybe a minute, got a street sweeping ticket. Some street sweeping tickets were issued after the street sweeper had already passed the street and the event was over, and the driver was certainly not impeding street sweeping and had no knowledge of it. And then some of you might recall receiving this letter back in September 26, 2017, date stamped by the clerk's office that we all got. And this was a person that, again, she writes, the ticket was literally 2 minutes after I parked, which means the person must have saw me and elected not to tell me, and that the street sweeping schedule had changed. So for various reasons, I don't think the fines were applied very fairly, and I'd like to refer this to finance for discussion on that topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
So I will vote for this to go to committee. I don't want to block anybody's paper from going to committee, but I do just want to register a couple of concerns and questions that I have here. I want, again, I come at this always from the bias now as the chair of finance. I want to understand what the financial ramifications are going to be from this. Do we have a, and I'm not proposing that the council answer right now. I just want to prepare what we're going to speak about here in the committee. Do we know the extent of what this is? How many fines we're talking about here? I'd also like to know, isn't there already a appeals process that some of these specific one-offs should be able to go through? I think we should make sure we're using that and not inventing a new, using a hammer where a scalpel should do the trick. And then also, the underlying rationale I have a little bit of concern with that we have several parking regulations that unfortunately don't have signage. We are working on signage for the street sweeping, but there are a number of different parking regulations that we do have that will require, that don't have signage that should be fairly well known by residents. I'd like to understand if this sort of triggers a review of all those and to what extent we have those kind of regulations. And again, most of these regulations have come from resident concerns to make sure those streets are swept, resident concerns to make sure that there's adequate parking for residents and in front of businesses. So I'm going to vote for it to go to committee. I just wanted to frame the conversation a little bit from my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
I guess I do have a question. I don't know if Solicitor Fallon can answer this, is whether this is a paper that's an appropriation that really needs to come from the mayor's office. That's one of the questions I have. As someone who has paid some of these fines, I mean, we do have notices that go out on individual cars. I did get a warning before I got my fine. So I think there is built in this process of these things, and I think we have to remember, this is an important thing to keep our streets clean. There's a balance here. I mean, this is the reason why we have these ordinances that, as a city, I can remember the days before we did all this that we had really dirty streets, and so I think I'd be concerned that ultimately are we voting to have dirty streets again? So. I think I have some serious questions about this paper in that sense. That, it's always nice to give a pardon on fines, but we have this ordinance that was passed by this council, and I think the city's enforced it in a fair way. That there are some consequences, and we do want our streets cleaned. We hear about that too, and so I'm not in favor of this paper, but I guess we'll talk about it in finance if other people are, so, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. And to the chair, you know, I am deeply concerned with the recent trend of what I consider fiscally irresponsible papers to be submitted here. As many people have spoken tonight, we are coming up into a budget season. Also on the docket, we have the Community Development Block Grant. I just do not think that something like this, which is suggesting close to $1 million, be taken out of our revenue reserves, even be given any time in finance. It's not a realistic paper. I, for one, would not second this to go into into finance. I would let it die on the floor. So yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's $1 million coming out of our revenue reserves. I just don't understand how something this fiscally irresponsible would even be put on the docket.
Thank you. Counselor Kamel,
Yeah,
for the second time.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I just noticed, and I hate to put him on the spot, but I do see Ron Hogan in the back. And this is pertaining to parking. I would ask, would the council president mind if we had Ron kind of come up and address a couple of questions?
Is everybody okay with that?
Everybody okay with that?
Okay. Mr. Hogan?
Right, and again, you know, with respect, I don't want to hold people's papers up, but this is a fairly important thing, and we're in the full floor here, so I think we should make sure we bring as much information into the committee as we can. Thank you, Mr. Hogan. You're welcome for joining us. If you would, what are some of the other situations we have in which we don't necessarily have signage out there, but these are traffic and parking regulations that should be known by most drivers, especially in the city of Malden?
Well, so off the top of my head, I guess, and I'm sure I won't get them all, but ranking from, I think, the probably second most common one of all the tickets we write, which is for winter parking violations, right? So those regulations aren't posted across the city. Snow emergency aren't posted across the city. And then you work your way through parking within 20 feet of an intersection, parking within 10 feet of a fire hydrant. You know, most of these are pretty common regulations, right? So our regulations model themselves after the model reg, so I don't think we're unique in any of those. And it just continues down to anything from, you know, parking on a crosswalk to, there's, for the most part, the signage that exists are timage-based signs, right? So 2-hour limitations, 1-hour limitations, that type thing. So I think almost everything else, you know, even so much as parking in front of a handicap ramp, which is a $300 fine, you have to know that you can't park in front of that ramp, right? You just have to know that that's the regulation. So there's a host of them like that, you know, fall in that category.
Right, that's just, yeah, again, that's my concern. If an argument can be made for one of those categories, it leads us down sort of a slippery slope, so. All right, thank you. I don't know if anybody else, more questions for Ron?
Thank you. Counselor Matheson?
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, obviously, we're talking about two different things here. Street sweeping is controlled by a municipality. What Mr. Hogan just referenced were a lot of rules of the road that you'll find in Chapter 90 in state law. You can't park over a crosswalk. You can't park next to an intersection. You can't park in front of a hydrant. It's common knowledge. What's not common knowledge is when street sweeping is going to occur. And if you really want clean streets, the best way to do it is to let folks know when they need to move their car off the street. Now, if you're a resident and you're very familiar with the schedule, that's fantastic. But what if you're a visitor? You're still going to impede upon street sweeping, maybe accidentally. And that might not be a fine that you should be levied against you. As far as ordinance being passed by the council, we didn't pass this ordinance. The fine was doubled 2 years ago. That was done by the Traffic Commission in consultation with other departments, including the mayor and DPW, I'm sure. And with all that being said, if you don't give people fair warning, it's probably not a good idea to double the fine. As far as what's fiscally irresponsible, I don't think that issuing a refund for a poorly levied citation is fiscally irresponsible at all. I think it's irresponsible to take $1 million out of the pockets of the residents for innocent mistakes. Well-intentioned drivers are going to receive these tickets, and I think it's a discussion worthy of having. Surely there is an appeal process, and I think that's great. I think it would be better if we didn't issue tickets like this in the first place. But let's get down to the numbers. I know you had asked me how many tickets were issued, and perhaps in the committee, when we discuss this, we can figure out how many were appealed, how many were refunded already, and let's find out what it cost the folks. I'm only thinking of basic fairness here. That's the whole motivation for this paper. And again, I was inspired last week by hearing that the mayor and Ron Hogan had collaborated to waive some citations that they felt were unfair. These are citations that I feel are unfair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, Madam President, I think we have parking I'm troubled by the paper here, because I think, you know, part of our job isn't always glamorous to be doing. You know, we have to make hard decisions about things, and one of the things that we have to do is set in place regulations for people to follow. And we've wrestled with this problem of not having signage. We're working on the signage now. I think we've had our parking department come before us and tell us that they've purchased some equipment that they can put the signs up, and what seemed to have been a very costly experience to go through is now not quite so costly. But we do have a process in place. Someone feels that they have gotten a wrong sweeping violation, they can appeal that. We've got a hearings officer in place to appeal that. We know also that when, for our residents, the first time they get a notice, it's usually just, it's just a warning initially. Or if they do get a violation, they can take that violation to our treasurer's office, and if it's the first time that it's been issued, our process, our policy has been to cancel that fine. So we're talking about $1 million here. I think that's the figure that was thrown out, and I kind of agree that to take that and refund all the fines for 2017 and 2018 doesn't say. What does that say to the people who followed the rules, who abided by the regulations that were in place, who went through the process? So I'm not in support of the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have to say, I agree with Councilor Anderson. I am not in favor of this, and one of the other reasons that I'm not able to support this evening is the fact that what makes 2017 and 2018 so special? You know, if we do it for 2017 and 2018, what about the person who comes in from 2015 and 2016? I think it sets a precedent that we haven't necessarily thought all the way through. And, you know, when you get in, and it doesn't even take into consideration the administrative work and the cost associated with all the administrative work of trying to go back in time and history and understand, you know, what should be refunded, what shouldn't be refunded, what if there were demands put on top of those fees, you know, what if the registry cancels somebody's registration? I mean, there is a whole host of administrative issues that would be tied to this that I think is just a Pandora's box. I think as a council, we've recognized the fact that the street sweeping is an issue, as Councilor Anderson alluded to. We have done our best over the years to try to get signs. We finally are kind of at the closing, we're at the end of the race, we're gonna get them up, and this is not gonna be a problem going forward. So, unfortunately, Councilor Matheson, you and I are usually in agreement, and I hate not to be with you on this, but I just, you know, in my good heart, I can't support this evening. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I too agree with my fellow councilors. My concern at this point too is, you know, we definitely have a delinquency in signs. We know that, we've been saying it for a while, and I know somebody who works in Boston, there are not signs anywhere, but I can guarantee you if I do not put my money in the meter, I'm getting a ticket. My concern though is this debate, which I think is fantastic, could really open up, if it takes 3 months to do an analysis, everybody's going to come here and say, there's no sign on my street, I'm not paying any tickets going forward until there's a sign on my street. And then you also have the concern too, is which I know Mr. Hogan's working on the signage. Some people do not want any more signs on their street. I mean, that was one of the areas when we were looking at putting residential parking, they were adamant, they thought they were ugly. They wanted one at the front, one at the back. So I think I've witnessed the appeals process personally inside the parking department when a gentleman came in and said, this is my first time parking here, and, it was a mistake, and they gave him back money. And I also witnessed 15 minutes later, somebody came in and said, I didn't know it was there, and the gentleman in the parking department looked it up. It was his third time he got this, and they waived it 2 times before. So I think there's a little bit of, sometimes acting dumb is getting away with that, but they track it. And finally, I just think, I agree that the fines did double. We had no say in that, but I don't have to look too far to the city of Everett where they don't have signs everywhere. They not only ticket, they tow.
They tell me.
And I am one, I would never be supportive of towing, but they are adamant, that's the only way they can get their streets clean, because that's the way it has to work in Everett. Now, they do things a little bit different. They always make sure that the ticketing is done as they go down the streets with the street sweeper, which I know we've talked about many times. Sometimes, well, they used to, didn't they? Maybe they didn't. Council Crowe might have corrected me. So I think there's ways to improve our process. I just think that if we open up Pandora's box, I'm afraid the next couple weeks, everybody who lives in a residential area that has any type of parking is going to say, well, there's no sign on my street, I don't want to pay. And finally, not that I want to say this because I don't think it's the right thing to do, is, we have a snow shoveling ordinance. There's no sign on my street that says I have to shovel my sidewalk. I know, right? And then we do have a process, too, to give you a warning, but I think it's incumbent on some of our residents, especially the ones who live in the area where there's permit parking. They know that. We know that. And I would rather make the excuses or the exceptions based on an exception basis, calling up, if a resident calls me up and says, I didn't know about it, that's what we do. We're supposed to be here to help the constituent. We can go to Mr. Hogan's office. It would help them. But if it's something that's all the time, I think it becomes overwhelming. So that's just my concerns with a lot of these things. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel for the 3rd time.
And final, I promise. So we brought this up, and apologies for dragging it out this long. But now that we have brought this up, and I know we have MATV, and we have discussed things like the appeal process and the notification, I do, sorry to drag Ron up here one more time. Would you mind coming up? And just make sure we know and we get the information out there about how do we notify and what is the appeals process and what's sort of our, how many do we end up appealing? Or appeals do we end up approving, things like that?
So first of all, notifications, I should tell you, we actually have 2 folks on the street now every day putting up the signs, right? So hopefully next year we're not having any of this discussion. But nonetheless, even prior to that process beginning, so if you take last year, we sent folks out several nights putting street sweeping notices along with the schedule on every vehicle on the street. We went door to door to every vehicle, to every house and left notices. We do mailers and the water bills, and then we of course have the electronic means where folks who have registered their phone number with us can get a notification before the start of the season as well as the night before they go out, right? So I think it's short of signs, it's sort of everything you can do without, having a sign up on the street.
Yeah,
obviously, I agree the sign makes it even better, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, but that's what we do, prior to the signs. On the appeal process, I think as Councilor Anderson said, generally speaking, the hearing officer for the first violation usually will look and see this the first one, which is why each year, typically something close to 20% of the tickets that get written get abated, right? Because it tends to be those first violations that happen, and then the hearing officer will look at the history and determine based upon that, whether or not the person should have or could have known what the schedule was, based upon the violation history.
Great.
So.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to make sure that information was out there. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
thank you.
Councilor Matheson.
All right, 3rd and last time. So just in response, I chose 2017 because that's when the fine was doubled. And I felt like it was patently unfair to double the fine knowing you were going to trick some well-intentioned residents and visitors to our city. And in looking at the ordinances of other cities, city after city finds this practice prohibitive and won't enforce such tickets unless there's a sign on the street to give fair warning to the parker. But in light of the comments I've heard and the respect I have for my colleagues, I'll change my motion. I'll move to place this paper on file. I'll do some more diligence on my own regarding how much in fines were abated versus how much were collected, and maybe we'll revisit this another time. So my motion is to place on file.
Do we have a second? On Councilor Matheson's motion to place this paper on file, seconded by Councilor Di Maria. We got to do this one first. Can we just vote on this really fast and then you can do another one? It doesn't matter. No, hold on, no. On Councilor Matheson's motion to put this paper on file, seconded by Councilor Di Maria. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Would you like the floor, Councilor O'Malley?
Well, I mean, it's been placed on file. My motion was to defeat, but it's been placed on file, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business.
Paper number 11519, order that the City of Malden file with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development a consolidated plan including applications for grants under the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended in the Cranston-Gonzalez Housing Act of 1990 as amended to be administered by the Malden Redevelopment Authority for fiscal year 2020, including all understanding and assurances contained therein or substantially in the form presented to this meeting, and that Gary Christensen, Mayor and Chief Executive Officer of the City of Malden, be and hereby is directed and designated as the authorized representative for and in the name in behalf of the City of Malden to sign and file said plan, to act in connection with said plan, and to provide such additional information as may be required.
On Councilor Kamel's motion.
To refer to
Finance.
finance. By the way, these are the applications, the binder of them, which we are all free to take a look at. You have to look at them tonight. It's your only chance. No, I'm just kidding. They're going to be up in the MRA. I also have the Community Development Director's cards here for everybody to make sure you have his contact information. And then we'll be able to also look at these during the discussions in Finance Committee. But absolutely, if you can, take advantage of going up there and taking a look at it if you want to familiarize yourself with any of these applications. So I move to refer to Finance.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to refer, oh, sorry, I didn't see a light. Councilor Spatafora.
Council Kamel, I don't know if there's something, is there any way you could scan those? Not you personally, but am I right? Could they scan them? Because here's my concern. There is a lot of data there. And if I think if the council doesn't have enough time to digest that in their own house, I mean, clearly that would take some time. I mean, can the MRA scan that and send it to us? Because even during a finance meeting, it would take you 2 meetings to go through those diligently.
You know, I'm going to ask that question. I think that's probably not impossible. See if they already have an electronic version. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they can scan this. Let me find out.
Yeah, or at least the ones that you think are going to be sent to go further on. Is my because there's a lot of information there. And I don't know if we don't have enough time in committee meetings as is. And if you want, I know every councilor has projects up there or certain passions for certain organizations in the community. And not that I don't want to go up to City Hall and peruse through that large binder. I think it would be good to have at least a copy sent to us.
Yeah, and so let me
If
ask.
possible.
Oh, Lisa's gone, actually. She's in the other room. I just wanted to ask if we've,
Are you all set, Councilor?
That's all I had. I didn't mean to hold up the motion.
I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. It's going to be in Lisa's office. I didn't realize that.
Okay.
But,
Are you good?
yeah, no, do we also have we'll also have the summary, and we'll make sure to get those out to everybody so they can show you which ones are in interest. And as long as it's not a violation of OML, let's get that out to you, and if you have particular concerns, get back to me, and I can get more information on those specific applications, in lieu of maybe making this whole thing electronic.
Great. Sorry.
Power of Technology, Debbie Burke, the chairperson of the MRA, has already sent me a text and said they're happy to scan.
Thank
I
you.
did that
Thank
with
you.
my mind.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafora. Thank you, Councilor Kamel. Councilor Winslow.
So and before the Finance Committee, we'll also be looking at some sort of summary sheet that lists the things in the finance. So we didn't get that in this package, so, all right, we will get that. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to be clear. So those are all the applications that anyone sent in?
Those aren't what's in.
That's everything, and that's not the ones that have been
Yes.
sent up for
For approval, yes.
Gotcha. So, right, okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, on Councilor Kamel's motion that we refer this matter to finance, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter has been referred. Next order of business.
Next paper, 11619, order that the mayor be authorized to file an application for grants under the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 and the Cranston-Gonzalez Housing Act of 1990 CDBG budget.
On Councilor Kamel's motion that we refer this paper to finance, all those in favor? All those opposed? The paper has been referred, the matter has been referred. Next order of business.
Enrolled ordinances, paper 11719, order, rules and ordinance, paper number 274-18, order, be it hereby ordained that Chapter 6 of the revised ordinances of 1991 be amended by adding Section 6.49, licensing of marijuana establishments in the city of Malden.
On Councilor Spatafora's motion to ordain this ordinance, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DeMaria. Yes. Councilor Matheson. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Yes. Councilor Winslow.
Yes. The matter is ordained. Next order of business.
We have paper 118-19, order, rules and ordinance, paper number 65-19. Order, be it hereby ordained that the City Council establish a Cannabis Control Commission consisting of 5 members, police chief, financial expert, building commissioner, city employees, and 1 council appointment and 1 mayoral appointment.
On Councilor Spatafora's motion to ordain the ordinance, clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson? Yes. Councilor Kamel? Yes. Councilor Crowe? Yes. Councilor DeMaria? Yes. Councilor Matheson? Yes. Councilor Murphy? Yes. Councilor O'Malley? President Council Seeker?
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora? Councilor Winslow? Yes. The ordinance is ordained.
The matter is ordained. Next order of business.
Claims, paper 11919. Albert Constabile, 1 Nason Drive, Melrose, Mass. J. Dean Seeker, 12 Cleveland Street, Malden, Mass. Paper 12119. Gerald D. McCarthy, 8 First Street, Malden. Paper 12219, claim Alex Smith, 16 Cherry Street, Malden. Paper 12319, claim Beth Enright, 2 Jones Ave, Drake, Mass.
Councilor Kamel.
Refer to finance?
On Councilor Kamel's motion to refer the claims to finance, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The claims are referred. Next order of business.
Paper 12419, committee report, finance paper 8419, ordered that the sum of $337,973.70 be and the same is hereby transferred from salary reserve to the following accounts. Transfer to legislative salaries, $2,206.59, executive salaries, $14,580, assessor salaries, $6,573.29, legal salaries, $1,278.31, human resources salaries, $3,048.13, IT salaries, $9,637.53, city clerk salaries, $14,748.53, police labor salaries, $120,305, Fire admin salaries, $5,491.32. Public facilities salaries, $48,083.93. PIPS salaries, $20,114.59. Engineering salaries, $5,665.32. Board of Health salaries, $2,373.59. Veteran salaries, $2,158.01. Library salaries, $21,709.56. Executive professional services, $60,000.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Kamel for the committee.
Yeah, so these are, as has been described, several transfers from salary reserve to the appropriate departments after a review by our controller to see what is going to be needed to keep them on pace for the rest of the year. A vast majority of these are related to salary increases that had not yet been determined, with a couple of exceptions. One of the exceptions was in the city clerk's salary related to the election issues that we had. Of that 14,000 you see, 10,000 actually was being paid to our former city clerk to come in and support the elections proceedings. And then another one of note, the 60,000 at the end, the executive professional services, that's ongoing legal services for items that we have discussed in executive session, for legal matters we have discussed. So support for those services.
Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed this, but was there any elaboration on executive professional services?
Hold on, Councilor
Through the
Kamel.
chair to the chairman.
Right, that is for legal services related to lawsuits that, ongoing litigation.
Outside attorneys.
Outside attorneys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, just a similar kind of question. So why would the IT salaries be increased by $9,000? Was that, those were increases that were made during the year? Those are not union employees. What's the explanation for that?
I believe we also gave our non-union employees a corresponding increase.
Okay, that took effect when?
Do you guys mind? Sorry, Chuck, do you mind coming up? Yeah. Yeah, I'll let you answer it, Chuck. We did discuss this in finance, but...
Yeah, so those, pretty much all of those, except for the exceptions that Councilor Kamel mentioned, were for just the standard yearly COLA that all the employees, it was a 2% COLA that was granted via the ordinance committee in maybe November, retroactive to July 1st.
Okay. Did you guys get a COLA?
Let the record show that Councilor Anderson has a new paper, which I will wholeheartedly support.
I just didn't see that. Okay, cost of living is, okay, thank you very much. Okay. That
Thank
answered
you.
my question. Thank you.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Yes. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DiMaria. Yes. Councilor Matheson. Yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Yes. Councilor Winslow.
Yes. The order is adopted. Next order of business.
Paper number 12519, committee report. Personnel appointments, paper number 79-19, ordered that council confirmation of mayoral appointment Emily Kibler, 50 Concord Street, Apartment 1, Malden, Mass., to be appointed as an associate member of the Board of Appeal, said term to expire March 1st, 2020.
Councilor Crow's motion to receive the committee report. All those in favor? All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Crowe for the committee.
Thank you very much. Last week, the Personnel and Appointments Committee met with the two people that are on here, and we have actually Ms. Keebler in the audience tonight. And she kind of came before the committee and gave a little background information that she's lived in Malden for 2 years. She's a scientist by trade, and she saw the posting on Facebook, the city's Facebook, so it's reaching everybody, and thought it was really a great way for her to sort of give back to her, new community, well, that she's been involved in. So I know that she's been meeting already with City Assessor Mr. O'Brien, who's here, and really to get them up to speed, and she will be a associate member of the Board of Appeals, so, and the committee had recommended her to be reported out favorably unanimously, and so if you'd like. So, okay, Councilor O'Malley has.
Councilor O'Malley.
Motion to approve.
So
the
I
appointment.
would, Emily is a Ward 4 resident, so I just wanted to make the motion to confirm the appointment.
Great. On Councilor O'Malley's motion to confirm the appointment, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The appointment is confirmed. Next order of business.
Do you have any questions?
Next order of business, paper 126-19, committee report, personnel appointments, paper number 8119, council confirmation mayoral reappointment of William Coleman, 53 Kimball Street, Malden, Mass., as a member of the Department of Public Works Commission, term to expire March 1st, 2022.
On Councilor Crow's motion to confirm, to receive the committee report, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Crowe for the committee.
At the same meeting, we met with Mr. Coleman, former city councilor, and who appeared before the committee, and he's been on the DPW commission for the last 6 years, and really talked about some of the work that they're doing and working with some of the water, sewer, and some of the abatements, and really trying to help some of the residents in understanding all the things that happen. So the committee unanimously recommended that his appointment be reconfirmed. And I believe Councilor Murphy has something to say about this one, too. I started something new. What am I going to do?
Councilor Murphy.
I know. Mr. Coleman is a longtime resident of Ward 4, actually, and he moved from Ward 4 to Ward 5. My house was in Ward 4 at one time before it was redistricted the time before last, and, we moved into Ward 5, and then Mr. Coleman followed over into Ward 5, too. So Bill is just a great guy. Has put his time into the city, understands the city, always has given back, and I'm just happy to support his appointment to the reappointment to the DPW, and I hope you would all follow suit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, I'd like to also speak in support of this reappointment. I had the pleasure of serving with Bill Coleman on the city council many years ago. He did a fine job as a city councilor. He's done a fine job as a commissioner with the DPW. He's been on for a while. He takes his job seriously. He listens to the issues, listens to the complaints and the recommendations, and his decisions have been positive decisions and good decisions. And so I'm glad to support his reconfirmation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Well, he is a former Ward 4 city councilor, so I feel like I have to speak in favor of my predecessor, so I'm in full support of this appointment.
Thank you. On Councilor Crow's motion to confirm the appointment, all those in favor? All those opposed? The appointment has been confirmed. Next order of business.
Paper 12719, committee reports, petitions, licenses. Paper number 2219, a Class 2 Malden Middlesex Motors, 129 Charles Street, Malden, 25 cars renewal.
Could we take these one at a time for a moment?
Councilor Murphy.
for the paper. Sure.
You want it-
Committee report, please.
You want to,
Well. All those three, go this
okay,
way.
we're going to do them individually. Well, a couple of them individually,
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
Okay. On Counselor
Murphy's
Murphy's
motion to receive the committee
motion to
report.
receive the committee report. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee report has been received. Counselor Murphy for the committee.
Yes.
Counselor Anderson.
Yeah, there's a couple of these that still require some further review and investigation. This one in particular, where there's a question of how many license spots there are for the used car for Class 2 and those for open air. And so I'd ask that the council not act on this. Let's table this one until we get some more information back from our compliance people and our discussion around the issue.
I guess
So
I'll
I'd move a tabling motion on that one.
second it.
Okay. On Counselor Anderson's motion to table, seconded by Counselor Murphy. All those,
First one,
the first one.
first one.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The paper has been tabled. Petition, excuse me.
Actually, yeah, it's going to go back to, actually, it's going to be referred back to finance.
Referred back
Referred
to
back finance.
license?
A license, I'm sorry,
Sure.
referred back to license.
I'm going to refer that back to license.
Right,
That's a motion.
yeah.
I'd revise that motion to refer
Right.
it back to License Committee.
Okay. On the revised motion by Counselor Anderson, seconded by Counselor Murphy, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Next order of business. This is,
Another one.
okay.
Next paper, number 52-19, Class 2, West End Auto, 1 Malden Street, Malden, Mass., 15 cars renewal.
Motion to receive. the
Counselor
committee-
Anderson.
Motion to receive the committee report.
Oh, on Counselor Murphy's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee report is received. Counselor Murphy for the committee. Counselor Anderson.
Again, if I may on that one, I'd like to amend that. We don't, this is one of the licenses that has no parking requirement there, so the issue of 15 cars needs to be amended to have 0 cars parked there. And if we do that, I would be glad to
Okay,
change that to 0 and move
I'll
ready.
second that.
okay. On Counselor Anderson's motion to amend the 15 to 0, seconded by Counselor Murphy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The petition has been amended. On Counselor Anderson's motion to
As amended.
approve as amended, seconded by Counselor Winslow. Oh, you have a question?
So, not having been on this committee, so when you say you go to 0, that means they can't have any cars on their property?
Yes.
That's correct. All right, thank you. That's correct. Great, thanks.
Counselor Spatafora.
This is my, because this is the first time I've seen this. So when you go to 0, Council Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Do you still need a license, though?
Yes.
Yes.
To go to the auction.
Oh, okay, so they're not be able to they're not gonna be able to store any cars, but
Yes.
this gives them the ability to go to the auction and buy one.
That's correct.
Okay.
We've had a number of applicants who have asked for the ability to get the license so that they can do business at the auction. They have no need for storage. There are no cars that are on display and so forth, and that's why it would be 0.
And those are grandfathered in.
Right, so there's not something we would have, I'm sorry, may I? have the
Yeah,
floor for a second?
absolutely, go right ahead.
That's, Councilor Spatafora, that's not something that, today there is a requirement of 15 cars, that's a minimum. But we do have these grandfathered licenses that we deal with, and we just wanted to make sure that we weren't giving this person space for 15 cars that he doesn't
No,
have,
fair enough. That's the first time I've seen one with 0, that's why I had to ask, too.
There's a couple of them.
Okay.
So, to approve is amended.
Yep.
Dr.
On Counselor Murphy's motion to approve as amended, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The paper has been approved. Next order of business.
Barbara, are we doing,
Well, then we've got a class, we probably should do the
Are
class
you okay with
3.
doing the rest in bulk?
how about the
We
Class
can-
3? Did you want the Class 3 to go back to license?
No, the class 3 is fine.
Yeah. The rest are okay?
That's the I don't want to call it junkyard, the
Yes.
automotive,
That's the junkyard.
well, I didn't want to call it a junkyard.
It's a junkyard.
Okay, it's a junkyard.
Class Street.
Yes, automotive rainbow bridge, I like that. Okay, yes, so no, we'll approve that.
Okay. We can take them all together?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, the next paper, 2319, a Class 3, Malden Middlesex Motor Sales, Inc., 129 Charles Street, Malden, renewal. Paper number 4919, livery, Linda Della Liacono, 259 Mountain Ave, number 1, Malden, Mass., one-car renewal. Paper 50-19, livery, Ideal Park Limo Service, Inc., 61 High Rock Road, Malden, Mass., one-car renewal. Paper 5119, livery, Sampson Asefa, 47 Second Street, Malden, Mass., two-car renewal. And paper 5319, extended hours, Walgreens, number 03130, 185 Center Street, Malden, Mass., 7 days, 24 hours renewal.
Motion, receive the committee report?
On Councilor Murphy's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Murphy for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, all of these, well, we have a Class 3 license here, which is actually a junkyard. Then we have 3 livery licenses and the extended hours. We have met with our compliance officers to make sure that everything is in order with all of these licenses. It is. Our livery folks all have parking spots. Our compliance folks actually go out and verify that livery drivers actually have a place to park their car. So there is some, background work that is done prior to us approving them in the license committee. And these all came through with flying colors, so we would ask that all of these licenses be granted.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to grant the petitions, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The petitions have been granted. Next order of business.
Paper 12819, committee report, finance paper 85-19, ordered that the appropriations enumerated below, being in the amount of $637,549, be appropriated from the Community Preservation Fund for the following projects. High Rock, $5,300, budgeted from reserve account. Library Archives account, $154,364 from historic reserve account. World War I Memorial Park, $4,220 from budgeted reserve account. Malden Art Line, $40,643 from budgeted reserve account. Community Garden, $63,022 from budgeted reserve account. Fellsmere Park, $75,000 from budgeted reserve account. Roosevelt Park, $250,000 from budgeted reserve account. Trafton Park, $45,000 from budgeted reserve account. Total Community Preservation Fund expenditures, $637,549. Historic Resources Reserve Account, $154,364. Budgeted reserve account, $483,185. Total appropriations, $637,549.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Councilor Kamel for the committee report.
Great, thank you. So as most of you know, this is for the community preservation projects. We had a finance meeting. The result of that meeting, and I want to be clear on this, the result of that meeting is contained here in this report. There's 7 of them that were approved, 6 unanimously, 1 with not a unanimous vote. The 8th was voted to be tabled in the committee. However, I would like to say that at the end of this, end of going through the previous 7, I'd like to take up the possibility of us talking about that 8th here on the floor. The information that was discussed, there may be enough for us to kind of go forward with that one. So let me just, I want to read the language from the committee report just so so the Standing Committee on Finance, to whom was referred paper 85, series of 2019, having considered the same, make the following report. Committee recommends funding for the following projects to be approved as proposed by the CPC, as read earlier. High Rock, $5,300, Library Archives, $150. I'm not going to read all the amounts. Library Archives account, World War II Memorial Park, Malden Art Line, Community Garden, Roosevelt Park, Trafton Park. And then there were some outstanding questions on Fellsmere. The committee recommends that Fellsmere project remain in the Finance Committee, so I spoke with Karen Anderson on this. So right now, it basically had been voted to be tabled there. We might have to have a procedural vote to just get it from there, if we decide to do that. But I would like us, if we may, to discuss the other 7 first.
Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to bring that 8th paper out from Finance Committee so we can discuss them as a whole here today. Thank you.
Councilor Matheson's motion to remove the paper out of committee, seconded by Councilor Spatafora. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Councilor Kamel for the paper?
Just consider everything I previously said to include that.
Okay.
Yeah, at the moment, procedurally, we made that decision to say, okay, if we're going to have more discussion on it, it stays here. In the intervening days, it looks like we have the information. We might be able to just satisfy those questions now instead of having it back there. So that's
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilor Spatafora.
Oh, I didn't mean to, I apologize. It probably when I went to second it.
Oh.
I have nothing to add.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I was the counselor in Finance Committee who made the motion to table because, at least for the Fellsmere, there had been several different budgets that were in the files, and it wasn't clear to me sort of which budget we were approving, which items we were approving for the $75,000. So the CPC has forwarded some more information, and I've had a discussion a little bit more with Councilor Matheson. So I do have the preliminary project budget, so if you can hand that out, and wanted to offer some clarification. My confusion in the committee was that preliminary project budget was for $184,000. There were 10 items in there, but we are only budgeting $75,000, so it wasn't clear to me out of those 10 items what we were actually authorizing. So in further discussions, the intent is that this bid would be $75,000 for Fellsmere would be limited to items 7 through 10 of the preliminary project budget, which is for installing the new stone edge along the embankment of the water's edge, repairing and regrading the edge along that new embankment, purchasing and installing some two benches, and refurbishing the welcome sign. So that would be what those $75,000 could be spent on. So that would be, I guess, my offer to have that clarification put in the record, so that that when money is expended, that the controller's office knows what we've authorized to be spent on, and that this is what we're appropriating money for these last 4 items. Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Councilor DeMaria.
Okay. I guess that's, like I say, a motion to amend to make that be clear that it be items 7 through 10 on the preliminary project budget that was just presented, that would be, so yeah, great, great.
On Councilor Winslow's motion, seconded by Councilor Spatafora. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Paper's been amended. Councilor DeMaria was next.
Thank you, Madam President. One of the questions that I had in Finance Committee was actually who owns Fellsmere Pond and the area, and whether it was DCR or whether it was the City of Malden. But I did receive from Councilor Matheson confirmation from DCR that that the City of Malden, yeah, do you want to pass those out? Yeah, okay. Ownership of the fee in the park and pond is with the City of Malden. Therefore, you, meaning us, own the piece of property. So that made me feel so much more comfortable that we were improving our property and not DCR's property. So I am certainly fine with this, this expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
Yeah, I just wanted to, first of all, thank the finance team for allowing this paper to come forward. I think it was important. There was a couple questions, and I will just reiterate, even if it wasn't owned by the city of Malden, I'll be completely honest with you, we don't own the bike path. I said it last week. We certainly spend a lot of money there, and I think it's inside our boundaries, and I think all our citizens enjoy it. And this is something that I think that the pond does the same thing. So I'm happy that it is owned by us, but the same token is I think it's important we continue with this upkeep, just like there's some other assets that we necessarily don't control, but rather we have the ability to use on a daily basis. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. So are we talking about all of the papers or just Fellsmere? And we're starting with Fellsmere, or do we want to go through the list?
To now be on the list, and then I would request for us to go in order down the list, if
I
that is
agree.
okay
Okay.
with my colleagues. So I move roll call votes for High Rock, 5,300 from budgeted reserve account.
Okay. We still have,
Right, you can have the discussion then.
okay.
It's brought out.
We
now
just
it's- now it's-
amended,
now
we
it's
just
like-
amended it.
Now it's just like
Yes.
everything else.
It's just amended and
Yes.
yes. Yes.
Yep. no problem.
Okay. No worries. Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. I feel the same way that was expressed by Councilor Spatafora regarding Fellsmere, that whether it was a property that was wholly owned by the City of Malden or DCR, it is our jewel. It is something that we've been taking care of that park anyway. It's a gateway into Malden. It needs to be fixed, and here's the opportunity to do that. So it's nice that we do have the confirmation that it is, the property of Malden. But even if it was DCR, I would say it's ours, and we ought to be fixing it. So I'm glad to be supporting of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to thank Bob Knox, who stayed throughout the meeting to answer any questions about this and certainly help with this application of Fellsmere Park. And Senator Lewis, who helped us really tackle some improvements on Fellsway East, including the areas around the park, including sidewalks, crosswalks, and the like. I'm in favor of all these projects. I think they're wonderful to the city. I think it's going to be a great benefit to us all. So I look forward to the votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
I must hit the button again,
hit your
Madam
button?
President. I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I think we're taking a vote on High Rock first, so I just wanted to say this is a great example of the projects we have. An Eagle Scout will be helping to improve that park that the city did commit quite a bit of money to purchase. So now it will be better signed, and trails will be created, and it'll be more of an asset to the whole city. So I think this is a great example of what the CPA can bring to the city. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Well, I'm going back to the res, as we call it, as opposed to Fellsmere Pond, only because I have to follow along with Councilor Spatafora and Councilor Anderson and Councilor Matheson. Fellsmere Pond, or the res, as us old-timers call it, is a one-of-a-kind park in the city. We have many parks, but there's nothing like that park, and it is wonderful to be able to put funds in to make sure that it's restored from generations to come. I know my family, from my mother, who would be 103 next month, to all her sisters, have skated on that pond. I mean, there's, the fishing derbies. There's just so many wonderful activities that have happened over the past 100 years on it. Plus, I believe it's part of the Emerald Necklace, isn't it? I believe so. It's an Olmsted Park, I believe. So, yeah, it's great, and I'm just thrilled to be able to support funds going to that initiative. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more boring than the glowing language. I do want to make a statement that in the future, I'm going to maybe this is, we're not talking until next year, or whatever the next round, I want to make a request that we receive these appropriations separately. We can bring them in as a package or whatever, but it's going to make it easier for us to deal with that in the future. So that's just more a point of information. That's what I'm going to be requesting going forward, to be able to track these separately. After this batch. Next year.
Say that again. Councilor O'Malley, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I was a little confused. Are we talking about a specific project?
No, he's just saying
No, my
moving
point is
forward, he'd like to see them.
Procedurally, next round, I want to see these as individual appropriations if, yeah, if that counts as anything.
So I thought we were on High Rock.
We weren't just on High Rock. Do you have any comments, or?
My request would be that we take the votes separately.
We're going to take the vote
And
separately.
we're talking about High Rock?
You can absolutely
In
talk
full-
about High Rock
In full
right
support of
now.
High Rock. Looking forward to seeing it get done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, any other discussion on any of these projects moving forward? We're going to, Councilor O'Malley?
Thank you, Madam President. So in finance, I'm sure those that were in attendance will remember there were two papers that I did not vote favorably to report out. Not because I don't think they have merit, but because I think that one of them I do think needs more public vetting, and the other one, well, and both of them don't seem to have a complete financial package, which is something that my understanding the CPC was looking at. They didn't want to be the initial funding mechanism. They wanted to make sure that there was a 100% funding mechanism and that they would come up with the difference there. So those two projects are, as we just discussed, Fellsmere Park, and the other one was Roosevelt Field. Both projects, I think, are very merited. I just don't think that the applications are complete. I do appreciate the fact that we now have an email from the DCR saying that we own the parcel. It's not an entry from the Registry of Deeds, but I can take it that it's legitimate. One of the things I do see in here is that it does say that the DCR does have care and custody of the park, and that they would like to review any changes that are taken in the park. I hope that we have that document saying that we can make these changes and that they're within the historic, the CPC, for instance, is historic preservation. So I'm hoping that the changes are being made have been vetted and are historically accurate. Regarding the Roosevelt Field, while I know that this specific money cannot be used for turf, the money from the CPC is being used to prep the site for turf. I think we all know that there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not it should be a natural grass field or a turf field. There has been some discussion between the variance in cost between turf and synthetic. There has been, I think, a lot of discussion between the potential health impact of turf versus synthetic. I think that that's kind of where I'm falling on this one. As a student that went to the Salemwood when it first opened, I think it was 2001, I just have to think about what is it going to be like for young children, like I once was, to play on this field for 8 years. There's been discussion about whether or not the fill, the rubber, could cause cancer in the long run. There is a lot of discussion about how hot the fields get. I think it's something worth vetting out a little bit more in the community. I said it during finance, I'll say it again. I come to it with those two perspectives. The fact that I went to the Salemwood, and I think it's not a secret, I lost a parent to cancer, so it's not really something that I take lightly, and I know that no one else on the council takes lightly either. I'm sure that we've all been impacted by the scourge of cancer. So I just wanted to say that I think it's important to vet these two projects more, but I won't hold up debate. Thank you.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I know, I guess we're talking about all the projects then. So, I think we have Dora St. Martin here from the library who's hung out for so long. So really great, exciting project to really make sure our archives are held well.
You kidding?
Follow up on the World War I Memorial, on the Art Line project, which is going to bring more art along the bike trail, community garden that's going to enhance along the trail, and Roosevelt Field. I know one of the things, just to point out, the Finance Committee did vote its sense that there should be more public vetting of Roosevelt Field, and there should be a community meeting at Salem Woods School to talk about that. So I think that might be some motion we may want to make in association, or adopt that same motion as a council as a whole, that we really do have that public vetting. This, for Roosevelt Field, there's a $250,000 initial appropriation here, which will really get the design process going to allow us also to test the field out there. I know Chuck Rannigan came out for the Finance Committee and mentioned that, should this paper pass tonight for Roosevelt Field, they'll be coming back with the bonding for the construction part, and there are some commitment letters from the Baird Foundation for all this. So, I think the financing will be looked at all together. But this is a start, a kind of a down payment on that project and get it rolling. That's why I supported that in committee, to get it rolling. I think it's that field in particular. That's the biggest elementary school in our system, and that field has been traditionally very rough. So it would be good to move forward on whatever resolution our committee supports. But let's move forward on it. And then we'll hear more about financing in the future. And the CPC has been presented with a bonding proposal, and they're waiting this vote to submit the next step there. So I'm definitely in favor of all these projects, and I'm glad we could work out and get Fellsmere on this all together, because I was definitely supportive of the project, but just wanted to make sure that we know what we're spending our money on. Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
I meant to hit my mic this time.
Okay.
And I know Council Kamel's dying to get to the voting, and I agree, but I think everybody's speaking in generalities. I'm going to support all the papers here, but I think the real applaud should go to not only the way this is our first time using this money, but the process. I know this was a much heated debate in terms of how we created these committees, who sat in this committee, on these committees, but I can honestly say the process, I think, is working exactly the way it should be, where we look at it from a financial standpoint. We question the validity of the products, which we are doing now, but the heavy lifting was done by the CPC committee. They had their public meetings on many issues. There's a couple projects on here that I wanted to see, but unfortunately, I think the funding wasn't there, or at least it wasn't clear enough for them to consider voting on, and a really good project. So I want to give them much praise in the way that process was done, both transparently and open, and they had a lot to choose from. So I know Julianne is here. I know seeing them on Tuesday nights, they were always in the other room. That was a huge process. And then finally, Council Kamel being a second-year councilor, and then having finance running through that process and sitting on there and vetting through this. This is how it has to be. And while there's definitely questions, I think the bulk of us all agree. It's a long process, it's a tedious road, but that is what this money was earmarked for, the projects that we would love to do, but we can't. I call them the fillers. You fill in the cracks with the stuff that we can't take out of the budget every day. I think it's great to have debate, but I want the general community to know that this is something that did not start last year. It started many months ago, but also there was many, many levels of meetings, not only from the council's perspective, but also the Community Preservation Act. So that would be my 2 cents, but I look forward to sending all these papers with my recommendation, and they cover the gamut. They go from everything from historical to preservation, and again, that's the purpose of this. So thank you for Julie and her team, and thank you to the finance team for getting this far, and I look forward to supporting all the papers. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councilor Winslow. That was a great analysis of Roosevelt Park and the funding, et cetera, so I'm not going to repeat any of it because you were spot on with everything. The only thing that I did want to add to everyone is the fact that Mayor Christensen and I have met with the architects, And we have actually requested, there's a number of new products out there that are infill products that aren't crumb rubber, that are actually organic material. And we've actually asked the architect to come to look at those and come back with pricing on those. So they actually reduce they increase performance of the field for the players, and they also reduce the heat on the field. So, you know, this crumb rubber thing is not necessarily the way that we're going. We, you know, still have our options opened, and both the mayor and myself are committed to looking at them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, and I do want to commend Councilor Murphy on that, because that was my big concern, is safety of the children, first of all, and I did hear from many residents against the turf. So I'm so happy that we're investigating different alternatives. That does help with my vote tonight. And it does come a time where you have to weigh the difference of, is grass really the best way to go for that particular park? Many years ago, my children have all played on that park, and cheerleaders have been at that park, and it's always been flooded. So, I mean, what's the purpose of having something you can't use? But it is safety first for me, so I do applaud you, Councilor Murphy, for that, and Mayor Christensen for that. So I will be supporting that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to take these up individually. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order for the project High Rock, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Yes. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe.
Yes.
Councilor DiMaria. Yes. Councilor Matheson. Yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora.
Yes.
Councilor Winslow.
The order is adopted. Next order of business. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order for the project Library Archives account, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Yes. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DiMaria. Yes. Councilor Matheson. Yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora.
Yes.
Councilor Winslow.
The order is adopted. Next order. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order for the project of World War I Memorial Park, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Yes. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DiMaria. Councilor Matheson. Yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Yes. Councilor Winslow.
The order is adopted. On Councilor Kamel's, Councilor Kamel.
Could we just put the, sorry, could you just repeat the amounts as we're reading them out?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order, the Malden Art Line project, $40,643, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Yes. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DiMaria. Councilor Matheson. Yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Yes. Councilor Winslow.
Yes. The order is adopted. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order of the Community Garden Project, $63,022. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Yes. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DiMaria. Yes. Councilor Matheson. Yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Councilor Winslow.
The order is adopted. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the Roosevelt Park project, excuse me, I apologize, Fellsman Park is next, for $75,000. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Yes. Councilor Kamel. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DiMaria. Councilor Matheson. Yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. President Council Seeker.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Yes. Councilor Winslow. Yes.
The order has been adopted. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order Roosevelt Park project for for $250,000. The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Anderson, Counselor Kamel, Counselor Crowe, Counselor DeMaria, Counselor Matheson, Counselor Murphy, Counselor O'Malley, President Counsel Sika,
Yes.
Counselor Spatafora, Counselor Winslow.
The order has been adopted. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt the order Trafton Park Project, $45,000, the clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Anderson, Counselor Kamel, Counselor Crowe, Counselor DeMaria, Counselor Matheson, Counselor Murphy, Counselor O'Malley, President Counsel Sika,
Yes.
Counselor Spatafora, Counselor Winslow.
The order is adopted. Next order of business. Councilor Spatafora.
Make, I meant to make this statement earlier, but I forgot, but I think for the general public, Council Kamel brought it up in the finance meeting. These were all the matches, in most cases, that we approved. If they don't, if those applicants do not match or get their funding mechanisms, we do not match it. The money goes back into the account. So there is a safety check here. So it's not something that we take lightly. They have to come up with their funding source, so we match it. If they don't, which we obviously want them to match, but for whatever reason, if they can't do it, that money goes back into the CPA account, and we will not spend it until the next round. So I think it's important for the general public to know. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafora. Next order of business.
Executive session. The City Council will vote to enter into executive session with legal counsel for the City Council in accordance with Exemption 7, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant-in aid requirements. In order to act on the periodic review of those executive session minutes listed herein, council vote is required prior to release of the executive session minutes of the following dates: January 25th, 11, November 15th, 11, October 23rd, 12, February 19th, 13, January 27th, 04, October 26th, 04, February 15th, 05, and April 15th, 05. In so convening an executive session, the City Council will act under the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22G2, to determine whether the executive session minutes referenced above warrant continued non-disclosure.
On Councilor Spatafora.
I have one more thing. I apologize. I was going to ask to entertain this earlier. She's probably sleeping now. My youngest, Liliana, is 7 today. She wanted me to say happy birthday. She's probably, it's one of those meetings where I told her, you never know. But I just want to say happy birthday to my youngest, Liliana. I'll have to give her the videotape. I was going to ask for your indulgence earlier, but I didn't want to, break up into that point. But before we go in executive session, I just want to say happy birthday to Liliana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if...
Councilor O'Malley, before I entertain you, I am going to do personal privilege after this. I didn't know where you were going with it, Councilor Spatafora, so okay. We will do the roll call vote, and then we'll have personal privilege, and we'll go into executive session. Okay. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to admit Attorney Catherine Fallon, the legal counsel to the council, into executive session with us. All those in favor? All those opposed? She will be admitted into executive session. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to enter into executive session with Attorney Fallon, the clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Anderson, Counselor Kamel, Counselor Crowe, Counselor DeMaria, Counselor Matheson, Counselor Murphy, Counselor O'Malley, Counselor Sika,
Yes.
Counselor Spatafora, Counselor Winslow.
Okay, so the council will enter into executive session and only reconvene for the purposes of adjournment. Anybody want to speak about personal privilege now? Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we overlooked a moment of silence earlier. So I'd just like to take a moment of silence for the 50 victims of the massacre in Christchurch, New Zealand. A mass shooter killed, like I said, 50 people in 2 months. And there was also one in Norway, I was just informed.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people again that this Thursday at the First Church, that we're having the Sustainable Transportation Forum this at 6 o'clock. And before that, there's going to be electrical vehicle fair. So looking forward to that. The keynote speaker is Jackie DeWolf, who's the head of Sustainable Transportation at MassDOT, and we'll be talking about better bus routes, complete streets, and other things that communities are doing to make their transportation system more efficient and sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam President. And I want to thank Councilor O'Malley for reminding us that we needed to have a moment of silence for that horrific action that happened in New Zealand. And I want to just add to that by saying that I would hope that this council would go on record as condemning that kind of hate-filled action that we see just going on in so many places around the world. Look at New Zealand, a country that has generally had such peaceful action, and to have this gun violence that takes place and deranged people who play out these horrific acts, I think it's terrible, and I would hope that the council as a whole would look and have a motion that we condemn such hate-filled actions throughout the world.
Seconded.
And we have a second to that?
I seconded.
Yeah.
I seconded.
On the motion? All those in favor say aye. What was it?
Should we suspend Dr. Lewis for the,
No,
is there a
no.
result? No, okay.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. President?
Who's the next one? All right, now I'm just sitting here for a second for personal privilege. Councilor Camille? Did you? Good, give it a click. There we go.
Yeah, I too want to thank Councilor O'Malley. It was an oversight, and I'm glad we took that moment of silence. And Councilor Anderson's words are, as usual, really articulate sort of the moral heart of this body. I had the pleasure today of going to Malden High School Civics Day, which was a great. I was joined by several of our councilors here. It was a great event. Maybe scares us for our jobs because a lot of these students are already, and some of them are left. They come here and they watch us. They're very good already, very astute and mature, and we had the pleasure of listening to, and they were all freshmen, right, Councilman?
Ninth graders. That's right.
Ninth graders, who were presenting these civics issues, and now I was going in there expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but what I saw was one on gun violence. I saw one on bullying. I saw one on sex trafficking. And then the lighter fare was just college affordability and the weight of debt and of the lack of focus on mental health in their health classes and students having anxiety and depression and not knowing what they're going through. And so just in combination when we talk about these mass shootings and when we talk about the world these kids are living in and what they have to see every day, when we were bullied in school, we could go home. We could shut the door. They can't. They're continuously bombarded by these things through social media. I want us all to make sure we keep these kids in our mind. I want us all to remember, because what happens here, what happens in how we address those anxieties and issues that these kids are having right now determines the course of whether we see another one of these mass shootings, see another one of these ODs someday, see another one of these, just life gonna stray if we abandon these kids. And I want us all to make sure we always keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Yeah. Actually, I'll give deference to the council president. I wasn't sure if you were going to mention this, but City Planner Michelle Romero forwarded to us. There's going to be a meeting tomorrow evening.
Oh, I apologize, yes.
Would you like to take over?
You can.
Okay. Tomorrow evening, there will be a meeting regarding Overlook Ridge and the master plan of that development. You know, we often talk about the cost of development in the large buildings. And while a lot of these things were already approved, there's still more coming down the pipeline. The meeting will be at 507 Squire Road in Revere, which is the 4 Points by Sheridan, right at the Rotary at Route 60. So if you'd like to comment and find out what's going on with the master plan at Overlook Ridge, you can go to 507 Squire Road, Revere, tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to also remind everybody that Zonta, which is a wonderful women's nonprofit, is honoring our very own Maria Louise next Thursday night at Anthony's as a former recipient of a Woman of the Year, as well as Councilor Crow. Is a wonderful honor. If you can make it, I think it starts about 6:30, I think 5:30 is cocktails. You know, we applaud Maria Louise, who is the assistant to the Mayor, Gary Christensen. So that is Zonta. The other thing I did want to mention, while this is not a committee report, last evening we had a very spirited public hearing through citizens engagement at the Linden STEAM Academy. There were almost 35 in attendance. BB school children came and presented their views on plastic, single-use plastic bags, as well as Mystic Valley Regional Charter School. And there was a petition signed by 204 residents of Malden to move forward with this. As the chair, I am looking for a second meeting, and I will be contacting those members. And as soon as we get that, we will move forward with publicizing that. So apologize, that's really not a committee report, but I was very proud of the spirited conversation and mindful discussion that was had last night. And I do thank other counselors that were in attendance that were not on committee. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Di Maria. And from the chair, I'd like to just piggyback off of Councilor O'Malley with the meeting for tomorrow night over regarding Overlook Ridge. It is definitely about their master plan, but the main issue of this meeting is they're looking to redo part of Route 1 over there. I'm not sure if you're aware of this by the notice, but Roseland has been in touch with us, and they're actually looking to work with Mass DOT to redo the on and off ramp on the Salem Street, Lynn Street area. We had requested at the last site plan review committee, when we approved the 3 buildings that they're building currently, to add a second egress to the development and add a traffic light. So they're going to be discussing possibly moving forward with the original plan from 20-something years ago, to go through Overlook to get on and off Route 1. So it is a very important meeting. If you have time to come and listen to Roseland's new master, it's not even really a new master plan, right, Councilor O'Malley? It's the original master plan that they're actually just looking to fund themselves instead of waiting for the DOT to do the work on Route 1. So I think it's what our residents have wanted for the past few years. We actually held up the project for a long period of time because of not having the second egress. So I think For us, it's a huge step in the right direction, and I look forward to attending the meeting tomorrow night. So thank you. Have a nice night. To recess into executive session by Councilor Matheson. All those in favor? Okay.